My name is Caleb Smith. To my right, I have
Joshua Blander, aka Fair Conscious.
And in the middle, we have the hottest journalist in the game in the city.
No doubt.
AKA the best professor that you could ever find at Georgia State.
No doubt.
AKA the GOAT.
No doubt. Professor Daniel.
Professor Daniel, also known as Uncle Chris. Thank you for coming onto the show today.
You guys are too much. I appreciate it.
It's what we do. You are like, what, a living legend at State right now.
He's the godfather. He's going to show us the ropes. He's going to take us around.
Exactly. We are here because of this man right here. So,
to whom is given, much is required, man.
Thank you. So, Professor Daniel, so humble. Can you just explain to everybody what you do on a daily basis somewhat? Your profession, your trade.
Sure. Well, currently I'm visiting faculty in the Department of Communication at Georgia State, where I specialize in digital journalism courses. So I teach a lot of the basic news writing classes there. I also am a historian by practice and by trade. So I instructed the history of news media courses there too for both semesters. Also had intro to mass communication, where we kind of get into an overview of every space within mass media culture.
Class.
Yeah. And of course, advanced media writing.
That's me, advanced.
But this year is actually going to be very special to me because I get the luxury and the privilege of teaching the university's very first music journalism course. And after spending the last 11, 12 years writing about a variety of genres and reviewing shows and, reviewing literature and albums and speaking to a variety of talent, whether it's songwriters, artists, engineers, mixers, management, publicists, things of that nature, we're really going to get into the heart of what makes the whole music journalism space move and all the different moving pieces that allows you to watch music videos and listen to the records and actually hear all the promo spots on air and even just reading the articles in print. Really being able to really see how the moves and all of the contributions that so many unsung heroes really make. And it's a chance for you guys to also get a great sense of other career opportunities as well. I know a lot of times when you're in school, the instructors have a tendency to really shove down your throat, CNN, Turner, and really just getting like an anchor gig, or you writing for the AJC or the Atlanta Business Chronicle, in which I'm not, taking that away from you. If you do that, that's great. But there are so many other areas for you to really flex your muscle and utilize your skill set and really bring your resources to the table. So I think it's important to really reveal that to you and give you those options. But, taking the last 12 years to write extensively on music and write about social justice work and look at nonprofits and, write about film and television, it's really given me a lot of resources and a lot of access to a lot of amazing people and a lot of amazing spaces and just a wealth of information to really impart on you guys. So I just think it's key to be able to take that experience and those blessings and be able to bless somebody else and really allow you to demonstrate your skill and figure out what your passion ultimately is and what your contribution is going to be as a productive citizen and as a professional. So, but I just think it's key to just try to put something good back into the community and in the process really help to build that next wave of professionals in this industry, because it's a great time. You guys have a lot of things at your disposal that we didn't have. It's just a matter of you really being able to chase it and really having good support behind you, but also really taking the initiative to really follow your dreams and making them come true.
Right. And speaking on that, Professor, there's been so many times that, people, they'll probably say, like, why are you, majoring in journalism? Like, you can't be making any money or
my
like
neighbor
you won't be successful in that
last week
field.
literally stopped me. He was like, you need to change your major.
Exactly.
I was like, no, I want to do this. He was
I can do it.
You need to change your major, son.
Right.
And I was like, nah, bro.
Exactly.
He's just like, no.
Exactly.
Bro, I'm like, come on, man. If I like writing, bro, let me do what I want to do. So
right.
Yeah, like it really speaks to that point. Like people don't want us to do this.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So with all of that being said, what is your counter argument to that?
Well, I think you have to really figure out what your contribution is ultimately going to be and kind of what is your intention behind anything. If your intention is commerce driven, and yes, you can definitely get paid, but you have to work more on the business side or be more in an executive role so that you can cut checks, get sponsors and things of that nature. But I think the biggest thing for us is because we're already at a disadvantage socially, being people of color and specifically being men of color. A lot of times people look at us as the underdog, or we're always kind of vilified or whatever the case may be. But I think it's key to really speak for people who don't really have a voice, or they don't know how to articulate certain things. And then you also have to kind of be the person to help empower and inspire others too. I mean, it's an amazing wealth of things that our people are doing, which is really ultimately why I wanted to write about people in the first place and write about music and our cultural contributions. I mean, that's the one space where people really look to us for influence, or that's the one space where people look for us to really articulate who we are as human beings.
Right.
But it is a big problem when you have people that are not within that culture that you operate from telling stories based on what they hear or what they read in some other space, or just kind of just hearsay. You have to kind of be that person to tell your own story.
Right.
And in this age that we're in now, where it's super hyper visual, and you have a lot of resources and you have a lot of platforms to really develop that vision, you have to be the person to really do that. And so I think it's a big deal for you guys to be doing this show, because it's really laying the foundation for where you'll potentially end up in the future. But it's also a great practice run for you to really iron out some issues that may affect you, that you may be passionate about. But it's also giving you a chance to kind of be the voice and to be the next wave. I mean, like I said, I think it's key to keep the culture in circulation, but you also have to kind of be the person that wants to do this. This is not an easy career to get into. I mean, there are so many different voices coming into it now, and you're kind of balancing and leveling the playing field, but you have to really figure out what exactly is your voice going to sound like, and what it's going to look like, and what can you say that's not being said. And you do have to do some research, and you have to make sure that you are listening to your contemporaries, and you have to be able to read the traditional people that came before you, and you have to kind of know your history, because that's really going to motivate you, one, to really look at what's ahead of you and the obstacles that you're going to face. But it's also giving you a great foundation to really be great storytellers, and to be great cultural contributors, and to be great entrepreneurs, and to really just be really, really strong influencers in your own right.
Got you. Wow. You got anything, JB?
All right, so part of that you said, like, telling your own story.
Yeah.
Now, there was a movie that came out in the All Eyes on Me Tupac movie.
Okay.
Perfect.
Where somebody who couldn't tell his own story, his story was told. Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Oh, hey,
All
we
right.
just talked about it.
Do you think his story was told accurately?
I think it depends on the person that's viewing it and kind of what you look for. Obviously, I'm a music writer. I'm a historian. I'm a pop culture critic, but I'm also a media scholar. So one of the things that I'm looking at too whenever I watch anything is I'm always looking at how it's put together. And one of the things that really struck me when I watched it was I just thought from a technical standpoint, it was just poorly executed. And it's not to say that the subjects and the eras and time that they hit were a problem, because I grew up in that time. Yeah. So listening to the original music that was licensed was great. That really took me back to my childhood. And to even see those moments where I've read about it in Vibe over the years, or I saw Tabitha Soren on MTV News interviewing him, or listening to the albums in sequence, or just really knowing what I knew based on previous reports and previous research. It was great in terms of really recapturing the nostalgia and the zeitgeist that's associated with it. But again, you have to look at things very critically as well. I mean, you have to look at the fact that the writers might not necessarily look like us, but they are a part of the Hollywood system. Then you have to look at the fact that someone as distinguished as John Singleton, who's an Oscar-nominated filmmaker and one of the more prominent black filmmakers in the history of film, him not being on the project when a great deal of his work did look at these issues that you saw in the film. And then you're looking at something like Benny Boone, who was by trade a music video director.
Exactly.
So not to say that, Boom couldn't bring that essence to the film.
It's not his expertise to a certain degree.
You have to remember John Singleton was also the same director that directed Remember the Time for Michael Jackson. So it's not to say that you can't make the transition from one style of cinema to the other. But for me, I just really thought that stylistically it was just a very bad execution. Being able to watch a film where the transitions are not as effective or as cool and as clean as they could be in a film, and then you're taking 8 years to make this movie, and you still have bad transitions.
Hey, that's a pretty long time.
That's a very, very bad deal. And then some of the casting in the movie was a bit questionable. There were some very, very good performances in that film, but like most people, I definitely had a problem for obvious reasons with the Snoop cameo in the movie. But that's a whole different story. But I just think, for the sake of the nostalgia and the sake of really capturing Tupac's iconography, it's always good when you can see any biopic that does that, whether it was the Jacksons movie that was on in the early 90s, or even Tina Turner's film with Angela Bassett in it, or looking at something like Ray, or even something in the past like Amadeus or Gandhi. These films are dramatizations of their lives. You don't want to sit there and watch a montage that you can watch on Centric or MTV or BET or VH1 Soul. That's not what I pay for. But I mean, if that's what you're going to go for, definitely go for that on a different space to tell that story. But I think if it's going to be a feature film and it's going to be a biopic that's really going to reveal the humanity and the character arc and, different character development, flat versus dynamic, it should definitely be something a little bit more. Great execution in terms of really capturing him as a figure, but I just think the technical part really lacked for me.
Okay. And speaking on that, how much research do you think that, the typical journalist should do?
Well, I think I might have told you guys this before, but I literally am a researcher. So I think it's important for you to really pull from a variety of narratives. Even when you sit down and prep for a film screening or even interviewing an artist, you should definitely go back and first and foremost listen to the catalog. It's very important for you to listen to the music and get a good sense of stylistically what were their approach to certain songs, or how did they deliver the vocals, or did they work with a certain producer, or where did they record when they did certain things, or who were the people working behind them that helped to really execute their vision and make it pop. So all these little things will help you get ahead in the process. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to be an avid reader. Like, you have to read other interviews. And I think it's key to be able to get a good sense of what that experience looked like when that journalist did that piece. Because a lot of what you do in the interview and how your interviews are going to come out is all based on what you bring to it. So you definitely have to be a student and just kind of go back to basics and just read. And then, of course, now with all these platforms, Vimeo and YouTube and, Spotify and Apple Music and, Tidal and all this stuff, it's so many different ways for you to get more interactive stuff to really help to inform you as the person that's going to tell that story. And then, of course, when you're doing all this other stuff, the biggest thing I tell people, too, is you have to pay attention to nuance. The details are definitely going to tell your story for you. So when you're sitting down and you're paying attention to how someone is behaving in front of you, or what was the mood like, what did the colors look like behind, or kind of what room were you in? Were you in a hotel room? Were you having coffee? Or were you at a film festival post-screening? All these little things are going to really help to shape what that narrative is going to be. People want to feel like they're a part of your movement. I say that all the time. That people really want to be there with you. So you have to make sure that all of the work that you produce is really bringing them along on a journey, because in essence, all it is it's a story, it's an experience. So between you physically sitting down and just kind of pulling things apart, and then organizing your notes is another thing too. Don't be afraid to really use things that stand out. Right. And if something is Googleable, don't use it. Okay. Because a lot of times people don't want to know that stuff. They've already had multiple interviews and multiple conversations with other media outlets, other journalists, and they're tired of talking about that stuff. So you have to really pay attention to things like what they're posting on their Instagram accounts, or what are they tweeting about, what's on Snapchat. A lot of that stuff is stuff that really feeds the character of who they are, because it's coming from them 9 times out of 10. Right. I mean, they still have teams and stuff that do all their social media engagement, but 9 times out of 10 is really coming from them. So I think a lot of the miscellaneous things that you don't hear about, their charity work, or the silent partnerships they have, or the sort of causes in the community that they might be advocates for, even stuff that they read or things that they listen to and stuff that they cook in the kitchen, those little things make your story. And they like talking about stuff like that because that makes them very regular, makes them like you. So a lot of times they definitely want to be more humanized, and they want to be seen more as people. The Grammys and platinum plaques and Oscars and ranks on all these different listings are good, but when they can be human, that definitely makes your interview a memorable one for them.
Cool. Who's been your favorite interview?
That's a good one, man.
Oh my gosh. I always tell people, you know, whenever I'm interviewing anybody, it's literally like sitting in class. It's always
that's how we feel right now.
Yeah, it's literally no. I'm serious. Like it's literally a master class for humanity, because it's one thing to watch videos and to listen to records and to really see these people in concert and see their posters and all this other stuff, but to physically be able to touch somebody and to breathe the same air and just really spend time with them, really pulling their brain apart and allowing them the time to really decompress too. That's a big thing, and building that trust is very key. But I think, if you ask me, I think probably something that I never realized. I tell you the one interview that probably gave me the biggest revelation about musicians. It was Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood. And it was interesting because we were at one of the children's healthcare hospitals here in the city. And it was during the time when he had that residency at Phillips Arena a few years ago. So he spoke a lot about, you know, this new record that was coming and him having his residency over the course of 2 weeks, and then of course his marriage. And even when I asked him stuff, we got into like, you know, George Strait and Freddie Mercury and all the people that really put on great shows that really helped him to really execute his shows. Because one of the things that you'll notice about him is that he's a great live performer. It's really like going to see a rock show, but as a country musician. And it ended up being a situation where when we spoke a lot about him getting an Image Award. And he said to this day, that's still one of the most important accolades that he's ever received, because that let him know that he had an audience bigger than what he thought.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, this is like the best-selling male artist of the 20th century. That's a big deal. Like, we're selling physical albums. And so you finally see this guy who's literally, you know, just asking more questions about you and really trying to get a good sense of you and, you know, what made you want to write and what do you read and what makes you want to interview this guy. And, you know, just really having a really good dialogue, and just, this guy's like super wholesome, like super humble, just super cool. And then, you know, that weekend it was cool because he had done this outreach program with Roddy White, and it was a football camp. And it was, you know, a football camp that was very gender neutral. So, you know, you have boys and girls playing sports together, but the idea was to teach them, you know, good sportsmanship and to really bring people together just to do something really cool. So the only time that he really wasn't talking to me, he was talking to the kids giving out an award, and this was probably like 10 or 15 minutes. The rest of the time that we were on this field with these kids, he was talking to me. And I've never seen someone who was just so down to earth. Like I said, this guy is like the biggest selling musician of the 20th century, over the Beatles, over Michael Jackson, over Elvis. Like, really sold all these records. And, you know, it was funny because the guy actually ended up asking me, was I squared away for his concert? And he literally got on the phone, and then he pulled one of his person, and he said, make sure he's good. I had 4 tickets to his concert.
Wow.
And I was literally sitting in like the 3rd or the 4th row in this whole entire room. This is the closest I've ever sat at any concert I've ever been to. I've been going to concerts since 1987.
Yeah, new edition, right? Yeah, new edition.
So, you know, and, you know, the good thing about it is, when you allow yourself to be a sponge and to be a student and to be open to different things, you open yourself up for a lot of opportunities. And I've been very fortunate to do a lot of cool things, you know, sitting in the studio with Organized Noise, you know, while they're talking about their first EP, you know, sitting in the back drinking red wine with Wanda Sykes after a comedy routine, or, you know, talking about software programs with Quincy Jones, teaching kids how to play piano, and, you know, sitting down with a lot of musicians in Prince's camp, you know, giving Sheila E. a proclamation, giving Bill Rhoden from the New York Times a proclamation when he came to Georgia State last year. Talking to people like Andre Simone, you know, who was Prince's first bassist ever in any of his bands, and Morris Day, who led the Time, and, you know, just being able to have cool opportunities, you know, talking about Prince supposedly supposed to play on the Miles Ahead soundtrack with Robert Glasper, you know, all these different things that you get. It's kind of hard to really pin down one thing specific, but I think the biggest thing is when you allow yourself to be open to a lot of different things and just be a sponge and just love what you do, it's hard for you to really determine what's your favorite, because everything is literally like your children. And every story that I write, I try to make sure that I'm consistent in the storytelling. I always try to make sure that I'm bringing the audience along with me, and I'm making sure that I'm well prepared. You know, because you definitely want to make sure you've done your homework. Yeah. But you also want to make sure that you have a positive attitude too, because it really is like a match of energy. And when people can feel the element that you bring and the sort of air that you bring and the fact that you really enjoy it, they'll come out of it too.
Okay.
Like, it's a big deal to really step into a room with a very high profile person, and they might have had the best day. I can tell you one particular time, there was this one interview I had done backstage with Raheem Devon, who's an amazing live performer, probably one of the most incredible R&B singers on
Neo Soul too, right?
Crazy.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting situation because a promoter didn't pay him. So it was, he was jumping up and down, kind of losing it just a little bit. And anybody that mess with your money, you about ready to cut them. But, but it was cool because he realized that the energy that I had when I sat down to speak to him, it was really just from a place of being genuine and really just approaching him in such a way where you're just there to really be his advocate. The biggest thing is you have to be the subject's advocate.
Gotcha.
And really be their support, because again, they don't have to give you anything. They're taking time out of their schedule to talk to you. They can be talking to anybody from Rolling Stone and Spin and Billboard and Complex and the local papers and all this stuff, but they're really giving you an opportunity just to really feel what they feel. So you have to really appreciate that and be able to give them something that they can remember for the rest of their lives. But it's very difficult to really pin that down, but I can definitely tell you a lot of experiences that have really shaped me into the person that I am, into the writer that I am, but I don't take that for granted.
Now, there's this like overall consensus that rappers don't give good interviews.
Okay.
Do you think there's a truth to that, and why?
Yes and no. I've had a lot of great experiences with a lot of great MCs, and I'll tell you why. A great deal of them are actually very intelligent, very well-read people. So if you can go on just a very strong literary canon, a lot of times you can hook them. Because obviously, if you're telling words and you're telling stories and you're painting pictures with words,
that's their lane.
Yeah, that's their lane. So a lot of people don't really understand that in order for you to be that serious with it, you have to really do some homework, and you have to be great with words and phrases and metaphors and similes and all these different literary devices that they teach you in English class. But and there are some cases where you really do have a lot of artists who they have a lot of yes men around them. I never understood the whole entourage thing. I think that's the silliest stuff in the world. But you just have a lot of people around them that will literally do everything that they want them to do just to make them happy.
Yeah. Right.
And that does kind of affect the ego a great deal of the time. And you have to still be the person that's there to serve your purpose. You're there to do a job. You're on deadline. You have a story to get. You have something to say. So I think the biggest thing with that is there are a lot of artists who are very ego-driven, and some of them, they get some shine in so many different outlets to a point where they feel like they don't need anybody. And then you have the social media piece too, because they're constantly sharing and snapping and things like that. But you still have to have that outside perspective. You still have to have that very balanced voice that's really spreading who you are and trying to make you more human than you think you are. But there really are a lot of artists out there that act like jackasses, but there are some really good ones also that are very wise and very cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think Ben said we only have like 2 minutes left
in the
segment. So
we're going to continue this after this.
Part 2. Hey, we have to. So guys, thank you once again for subscribing, all the views. We love you guys.
Man, this is exciting, man.
Yeah. And thank you for watching your favorite podcast, and that's Necessary Knowledge and what, Josh?
Nonsense.
All right, and we'll catch you right back after this.
Yes.
Peace.
Stick around.
Yes, sir. What's up, good people?
Wait. How come you always get to talk first?
Yeah, Josh, speaking on that, I was about to ask you, bro, take the reins, because I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Closing out, we had the best episode of all time right here.
Wait, Josh,
man, Caleb Smith, Professor Daniel, Josh B right here. Thank you.
Take it over, Josh. Take it over, Josh.
YouTube channel. I want y'all to comment. I need feedback. We need to know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, so we can make this the best show possible for y'all.
No, Josh.
I want to shout out my mom. You know what I'm saying?
I want to shout out Jocelyn.
That's my sister. He has a girlfriend, so he got.
Shout out to Sid. Love my life though, for real.
Any shout outs you got?
Too many. I mean, definitely a shout out to Georgia State University's Department of Communication. I mean, very supportive, very good bunch of students, very good team over there. I mean, had I not been there, I wouldn't have met these guys and even be in front of you. I mean,
we changed his life.
We changed the game.
Yeah, so thank you to any editor, any publicist, any artist management, anyone that I've ever worked with over the last 12, 13 years. These guys have really made this journey a very fascinating one for me. And shout out to my students too. I mean, I know I don't always have like the best suggestions, and you might not necessarily agree with everything that I give you, but I think it's important to definitely take it for what it is and utilize it for what you're going to use it for and really push yourself. So, you guys motivate me and you guys expose me to a lot of stuff. So definitely shout out to all my students too, fall and spring semester, and all my technical students that's coming too. You guys are great.
Thank you, Professor.
Shout out to Ben.
Yeah, shout out to Ben Abrams.
It makes everything here possible. Shout out to Vincent for being here for no reason whatsoever.
Pressing pause and play for us though, Josh. Thank you, BD. Hey, stand up so everybody can see you, man. Stand up. Yeah.
He gets a haircut, you take my earrings out, you can't get a job like that. You know, your jeans are ripped.
Rockstar skinnies, baby. Let them know, Vincent. Let them know. Rockstar skinnies, bro. But yeah, Professor, for all the people, that's trying to reach you out there, where can they find you?
Oh yeah, so you find me on Facebook. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Christopher A. Daniel. There's no S on that, guys.
Yeah.
And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can definitely find me at Journalistorian. So you can
That's the best username ever.
Yeah, so just
Fair conscious.
just spell out the word journalist and follow it with ORIAN, and hit me up, shoot me a note. I respond. I'm looking forward to your feedback. So definitely check me out. Let's make some magic happen. Let's make history.
Thank you.
You can find me at Shamrock Park playing basketball.
Yeah, hey, for real though, guys. Like, if you guys love playing basketball or football, or really just basketball, let us know. We will beat you guys on everything. Me, Josh, and Vincent.
I just love tacos, so any place with good tacos, you can definitely find me.
Hip hop trivia too, though.
Yeah.
Hip hop trivia.
Oh yeah, shout out to Maurice Garland,
Yeah.
Brandon Jacoby Peters, all my guys, curators of hip hop trivia, legendary journalists.
All
Shout
the
out
attractive
to
girls
these
that
guys.
walk through there.
Yeah, definitely shout out to the homies, man. DJ do say the great, all those guys on Wednesday nights. If you're not doing anything, definitely come to Slice Piedmont every Wednesday.
We're what,
5,
5-6 time champions though?
Like, we're the team. Intelligence is the team to beat.
We're like 5-6 time champions. He's like 20 times.
So that's it, man. So thank you guys once more. We love you. Subscribe, get the views up, share it with your mom, loved ones, and we got you. Voices out of you. Love. Thank you. Let's say knowledge and nonsense.